Well, hi everyone. I'm John Redland, back with a double review of two Netflix original movies that I saw today. Two Spanish movies, so I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the cast members or the directors because I'm just going to screw that shit up. Because that's what I tend to do with some foreign movies. Even though I like quite a few of them, I'm not really good at grasping the names. But you have The Occupant, a psychological thriller that is pretty typical but has a couple good performances, and then you have The Platform, which has a good concept but doesn't make the best use of it. Which one do I like? Which one do I like less than the other? Let's find out. Like any of these double reviews or multi-movie reviews that I do, shovelware or otherwise, or even movies that I like, I'm going to get into spoilers here because they're bite-sized chunk reviews, so that is your warning. Should you watch these movies, there are worse uses of your time. Honestly, there are plenty of movies out there that are absolute shit, and I will say that neither of these movies qualify as absolute shit. But let's start off with The Occupant. The life of Javier Munoz is crumbling. He's a popular executive, and he's been very rich. He's been very successful. Unfortunately, that's not happening for him anymore. He can't find a job. The one job he does find with an old friend of his is an unpaid internship for 3 months. Well, he can't live off that. He's got a wife. He's got a kid. They have to move out of the expensive apartment, expensive loft that they are in, and go to a rental property that, while not in the slums, is a downgrade and is something that he is not very happy with. Javier is very upset by this, and while he doesn't blame his wife or blame his kid, he figures out a way to basically get the life that he feels he deserves back. There is good cinematography in this and good use of music. I did like how they used the music. And while, yes, this movie is very cliche, it's a lot like The Intruder, that Dennis Quaid movie that was really goddamn shit. This at least has some better performances. Now, very cliche, very, very obvious where this is going. There's no real twist to this, but the performances, especially by the guy playing Javier, are quite good. And while there are some very cookie cutter characters and some characters that maybe just seem thrown in there just to be plot devices, nobody is particularly bad in this. Actually, everybody delivers, adds a little depth to their character, even when said character is only there for a few scenes. Um, he has to get rid of the maid, obviously, that they have at the expensive house, and she is not happy about this. Understandable. Who would want to lose their job? That's totally understandable. He says, well, I need the keys. We do love having you, and maybe we can have you at the old place, or the place we're staying at, in a few months, but he needs the keys. And he gets the keys, and then he decides, well, hey, that's my place. I raised my family there. I'm going to go back and, just let myself in whenever, because he sees a new family is there. A man named Tomas, his wife Laura, and their daughter Monica. And the daughter is from a previous relationship that Tomas had. And Javier finds out that, oh, there's a little more to this guy's life. He looks on his computer and everything. Apparently nobody notices when anything's moved around. That was one cliche that I had, or that was one thing I had a little bit of an issue with. But he goes on the computer and finds out that Tomas was in a drunk driving accident, and his wife and child were injured. Now, they weren't killed, obviously, since they're in the house. This isn't one of those psychological spoopy thriller things. But Javier, the wheels start turning, the gears start turning. He's like, hey, I'm going to go into an AA meeting, because he sees, I believe it's the chips or something like that you get. I've never been to an AA meeting, but I've seen them, talked about in movies, where you get chips if you are sober for like a week, a month, 6 months, that kind of stuff. 3 months, 6 months, which is all good. And if you need to go to those meetings, please do so. You guys can get help. Now, back to the movie. He befriends him and, pretends to be a drunk, a drug addict, and this kind of stuff, and basically just tries to take over his life. Messes with his life, changes appointments, so he fucks up with the relationship with the ex and the daughter. And he says in AA meeting, Javier does, I'm going to grab life by the horns without permission or apologizing, because he hears that in the class. And oh boy, well, he basically has dinner with them. He befriends them, so everything's going good. But then later he crashes his car in a parking garage, his expensive car, and then is pretending to drink, even though he's a healthy guy, but he's drinking. And then some that spills on Tomas. The wife gets upset. You've been drinking again. No, I haven't. I went to go help him. He twists all this stuff around. Javier does. And then there's a gardener there that Boy, the gardener recognizes Javier, but it turns out that the gardener's a pedo and says, hey, I'm going to tell Tomas who you are unless you take the daughter's panties and put them in a bag. Oh boy, that's exactly what we need to have. Oh boy, oh god, jeez, it's ridiculous. Javier does lie when he meets with the wife later, and then the lies do catch up, but he manages to dispatch the gardener. Gardener catches on fire and everything, so that's all taken out because the gardener even wants him to put a camera in the daughter's room. Lovely. He joins the family. He does spike some pepper spray and says here to the wife, hey, use this. Now he leaves his wife and child basically behind. That's kind of the shitty thing. But then this spiked pepper spray ends up damaging Tomas when he tries to get back in the house, and then Javier ends up killing him, takes over the life. Javier's ex-wife says, well, hey, I'm going to expose you. I know what you did. And he threatens her with taking all the money and everything from the expensive school and basically making him and the son live on the streets. So, okay, yeah, that's basically it. Okay, what is a C+? I'm bored talking about this. Let's talk about the platform, something that I really did like. This is a concept where it starts off with a quote. There are three types of person, those at the top, those at the bottom, and those who fall. It's a multi-level prison that has 2 prisoners per floor. And there's this grand, glorious kitchen that prepares food and is lower down on the platform. I don't know what powers the platform. Nobody figures it out. But it stops for a little bit, people eat, and then it goes through. And basically, as it gets lower and lower, you get the scraps, and then you get almost nothing. Then you get nothing when you go to one of the levels. Now, how many levels are in there? It turns out there's about 333 levels. So you could imagine, even if there's a sumptuous feast on a very wide platform, there's not going to be a lot of food by the time you get down to even level 50, but especially level 100. And it's absolutely ridiculous. The one character, and I had to write it down, Goreng, he is with an old guy that has been in that prison for a while, and there's various reasons. You can take one item with you. You can take a rope, you can take a knife, you can take a dog. I don't know why you'd want to take a dog when everybody's eating anything and trying to get there and trying to, satiate themselves. You are in a particular cell for a month, and as time goes on, you either move up or you move down. And things get a little bit wild. It's basically a class system. The rich eat, the people up top eat a whole lot more and everything and all that. And if you keep any food, though, systems turn on and it burns or it freezes you. And then you have to toss the food onto the platform. You cannot keep any food. You only get a certain amount of time to eat it. And Garangan is talking to this old guy. I didn't write down the old guy's name. It was very hard for me to pronounce anyway. But talking to him, and since the guy's been there so long, well, wait a second, you were on this way lower level, and then you got moved up and everything. Wait, now how did that happen? Because it's totally different. It was depends on the crimes you commit. There's no real, way of figuring that out. If you commit a crime, you could be moved up or you could be moved way back down. It doesn't really seem to matter, but it turns out that the main character figures out that, wait a second, old man, you ate your cellmate. Basically, you dined on your cellmate. That's how you were able to survive if food couldn't get that far. And we ate human flesh. This, the old guy's talking to him about it, and then there's this girl that keeps traveling down on the platform, occasionally looking for her son. Well, she looks for her son, and then people will try, prisoners will try to take her, men will try to take her to do things to her. Well, then she's violent and she kills people. We get to level 171. Snails are heavily figured in. It's talking about his little snail escargot, all that, and talking about snails and talking about, just basically everybody's going goddamn mad, and they're using food to have a way to cope. And then the old guy tries to kill him, tries to cut off his flesh after trapping him on the bed for about 8 days. And, well, then, then basically what happens is he starts to cut the flesh off of the main character, and then the girl comes down and kills him, or, slashes his throat, and then Garang kills him. Okay, so here's what's going on here. So, all right, he thanks the woman, but she goes down looking for her son. And then he keeps hallucinating. And then he goes to level 33. So the food's a little bit better. He talks to a woman that turns out interviewed him for this, for why he would voluntarily want to go to a prison like this. She brings a dog. Well, the dog dies. Thankfully, they didn't show the dog dying because otherwise I would have had to have downgraded the movie. And I know that seems a little bit weird. As many horror movies as I like, I just don't like seeing animals die in movies. I mean, I don't like seeing animals die anyway, but because they didn't do anything. But you get my point. We all have things we do and don't like. So so they're talking a little bit, and then it turns out the woman hung herself because she had a cancer that she could not beat, and that's why she checked herself in there, because she figured she would just die in there. She'd been working for this thing called the Association for about 25 years, and that's who's running it. The Association. You don't know why they're running it like this. Oh, maybe it's a way to teach people to only take what you want, because she does ration food out before she hangs herself and says, hey, we're trying to come up with a system to get food to the bottom so everybody can eat and they don't starve. And that system doesn't really work all that long. He then ends up eating her, but then he gets moved up to level 6. Hooray! He's up where he's going to get a lot of food. And then there's some crazy black guy with him. Baz something. And he had a rope, so he was going to climb up and he was going to get out. Well, that didn't end up working. And then they had a plan. They said, wait a second. Bring food to the last level, a dish untouched, and then you could do it. And he talks actually to this wise guy in a wheelchair below and says, we'll do that. Bring a dish untouched back to them. And there you go. They do that, and things do get a little bit violent when people start, when they have their weapons. Some guy has a samurai sword. So it's very much like Cube. It kind of reminds me a bit of Cube, actually. And that things start to unravel a little bit more towards the end, even with the good concept. It's called the panna cotta. The panna cotta, I forget, it's like a little tiramisu thing or a little dish. I'm not really all that familiar with it. I'm just throwing terms out. But anyway, they reach the last level. There's the kid that the woman may have had or not, or maybe it's a young girl. It turns out she's this message. She is somebody, hey, you got food down to her at the very last level. Level 333. Who built this thing, I wonder? But they feed it to her. And then they go down on they go down to this basement level. Well, he's talking to the old guy, and the girl gets carried back up, and then the movie ends right there. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it right there. The thing about the movie is I was all ready to give it a much higher grade than I ended up giving it. But, because The Occupant I gave a C+ to. This gets a better grade, do not get me wrong. This gets a B. Only because I get what they were trying to do, but it just kind of unravels a little bit at the end. And that's really just where I'm going to leave it right there. So is it bad? No, the platform's actually quite good. But it does kind of go off the rails a little bit at the end, and then it just ends okay, so the whole point was you have to get food to the bottom and you break the system. They don't really go anywhere with it. Don't do the Platform 2 Electric Boogaloo. But anyway, do you agree? Do you disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.